Hello there folks, this is Ferengi on board again, this time with a video on the topic of evil and with a question whether you as a person consider yourself evil. Now, when asked this question, I bet most people will definitely say that they are not. And well, I can actually amuse myself that the knowledge of the word evil has been denaturated so much that most people don't even know what evil still means nowadays. Now, it will be probably surprising that evil is actually part of manipulation. And well, many people say manipulation is evil, but actually they are quite intertwined, not part one of the other. Now, the point of evil is something that people have created over time, and they have kind of, altered the meaning. You see, as of what ever since I was young, I really had an aversion towards concepts, and that included especially words. I didn't like the idea of words, and for some reason they felt more like humiliating almost, but not necessarily. And I simply disliked like anything that had a form or shape, anything that was kind of a construct. And now, as I am discovering more and more my potential and my specific as a crystal child, and also the sense of royalty that comes to with that, the point is that, well, I'm starting to understand more and more things. And one thing that amuses me is the fact that humanity as a whole has been creating concepts, and well, at a very lower vibrational state, when we finally started to discover we have a bit more awareness than other animals. The point was we needed constructs to improve ourselves. We needed, for example, a language. And a language is a set of constructs that you use, and you also have some rules for that. Well, rules are still some constructs. And of course, you needed laws and all sorts of ideas because, well, everything in the end is a construct. And the necessity for these always comes from the fact, of the mind. The mind is always gonna be interested in control and dominion over literally everything. You can see it in nature, like any animal that is slightly larger or simply feels that another animal is somewhat weaker. Well, it will actually, indulge in any activity that will lower that animal even more. It will steal food from it, it will beat it, it will do like literally everything to show its, to assert its dominance over it. And of course, we have created a lot of meanings, which are a kind of self-destruction button anyways, and all sorts of stories and ideas, like for example the paternal society, which had in a way women under control. But let's not forget that men and women have always been subject to parasites of more or less spiritual nature, mental, psychological natures, and in the end it has just been a play in which in most of the situations the humans, the vast majority of them, they were just pawns that were used by such entities, especially when we had like very very low awareness. We were basically acting on instinct, but we didn't even know that those instincts were actually parasites experiencing through us. Because the point is, when you let yourself ruled by parasites, you basically let them experience life through yourself. And now, to be honest, there are billions of billions, probably of billions, of entities that are very curious as to how life it is in here. But there is also the principle of instant gratification. Instead of doing the hard work for something, like in this case, if they want to experience life in here, they have to go through the long, tedious processes of, setting up some destinies, doing the hard work, then getting born. It means traveling through different other possible vibrations until they reach the vibration of this one, probably live separate lives in order to become compatible with this, or they can simply get born into this world by attaching themselves to a child, but they already have a soul, so unfortunately they cannot enter that body. Okay, consider the soul as a kind of a protective energy that disallows anything from entering in. Now, there are also humans that basically don't have a soul, they are just constructs, and they have been designed for various purposes through different, more or less otherworldly technologies. Now, I'm not calling about aliens and, constipational series. I'm just speaking that not everything that is born a human necessarily has a soul in a way, although I kind of don't believe in the idea of the soul. So basically, there are multiple types of consciousnesses that come and experience life from the prism of a human, and well, they all have their own backgrounds, so therefore they will have their own natural inclinations. Now, the point is with this control that has been around, is like women haven't necessarily been controlled by men because, let's face it, they have always been using their sexuality to gain control. It's always been done in societies, and it's always been prohibited to women to, even think of unleashing at least a bit of their sexuality, because in a way, by repressing people you create pain, and by creating this kind of pain you create rebellion within people, and when you create rebellion within people you make them very easy to manipulate, because when people rebel they will want to do anything against the system. So there will be those parasites who come in front of you and present themselves as your savior. And finally, a person who's been oppressed so long, finding someone who's apparently a savior, they will simply follow that entity, most likely devoted. So the point is, it's one of the ways that you can control people. And you can see everywhere nowadays that people have such low self-esteem, they will literally do anything. If you give people the slightest, I mean the majority of people, the slightest edge in life, the slightest impression that they're finally doing something in life, well, they will actually gladly follow. Now, the problem of this comes mostly from religions, and especially from Christianity, because it might sound quite impressive or quite shocking in a way, but the greatest misery in the world, especially in Christian societies, well, stems from the fact that, well, you are born a shit, you are born a sinner, and well, there is this big white bearded fuck that doesn't have anything else to do rather than follow you and control you and see you whatever you're doing. And well, there is also that fear and that sensation of being useless, because no matter what you do you're still gonna burn in hell, but not only that, you'll also be punished and judged. Okay, so that is why people will gather an instinct to become judgmental and of course repulsive, and well, you also create different weapons in people, because through this type of mentality you create narcissism, and you also create illiteracy, because people will not be interested in understanding or reading any things, because they will lower their vibration and awareness with hatred and the such, and they will also through illiteracy gain the idea that they know it all, because idiot people will always have the impression that they know it all. Okay, and well, unfortunately there are millions, probably even more, of such examples in the world, and you simply don't speak with the such because they know it all, and you won't ever argue with them because you cannot ever win. As a quote of mine says, you never mess with the NPCs because you cannot change their programming, right? So now the idea is that all this control and thing, like everything was just pure control throughout our existence, and even now, because let's not forget that at our core we are still animals, okay? But what we should learn as humans is that we need to use, to call to our higher awareness, okay? Animals also have a higher awareness, but for their level they don't necessarily need this higher awareness. All they do is, well, they just eat, they just sleep, and they just walk, okay? They don't need anything. Oh yes, and also they breathe. They don't need anything else. And that's why they will always live at that lower vibration, that vibration of instincts, okay? Sure, if they are taken in a certain environment where these needs are met more than they are in, in wildlife, they will be able to manifest much greater emotions. Okay, they can manifest love and they can manifest different ideas. But regarding the idea of evil, what exactly is evil? Well, evil is actually a part of manipulation, and the point is that manipulation works by implanting different thoughts into you, different spiritual, psychological, mental devices that simply occupy some bits of memory from your mind. How these work? Well, exactly like viruses in your computer. They take a little, very little bit of memory space from, well, your mind, and, well, in their case, the computer, and they start doing their work. Now, as they work, they create these loops that, you know, if you are weak enough, you will start repeating them. And, well, the more you repeat them, the more you enforce them. That is why you will see that lower vibrational people will always repeat the same things. Usually they will bitch, whine, moan, complain about something or some things, right? They have a list, usually, because the point is, when a virus enters, okay, because as of ever since I was young, I was having this knowledge about entities, as I actually had a fear of losing myself, and I had kind of a weird awareness, like even when I was like the, I don't know, 10 years, 11, 12 probably, of entities that would enter your mind or your body or whatever, and they are capable of making you lose yourself or something like that. So the point is, evil is actually part of manipulation, as I said. And as these entities enter, okay, they will have these devices do their work, and as they gain more and more power, the point is they will introduce more and more. Because when people start bitching and moaning about something, they will draw other people's attention. And the more feeding they get, those entities become slightly stronger, so they become capable of inserting more and more devices. And that is how people will actually become terraformed, as I said, because entities and parasites will always require a specific environment. Even bacteria, even viruses require a specific environment. That is why, for example, in case of smokers, some viruses or diseases may not necessarily affect them because their toxic environment may not be good enough for those bacteria, or, well, a few of them, let's say. In other cases, let's say people who are very, very, healthy, they eat healthily, their environment might be too less acidic, okay, maybe too basic. So some viruses and different biological entities, okay, that require feeding themselves on acids, right? Like, for example, cancer. Cancer may not evolve in people who do a lot of jogging, who do a lot of movement, okay? And cancer will not develop in people who live by the seaside and, breathe in those aerosols or whatever you call them, that salty air, okay? That's one of the biggest cancer killers. And, well, the idea of evil is that once these devices are entered into the mind, the point is they will do different agendas. They will start making people live in reverse, okay? That's actually the main topic of manipulation, because manipulation doesn't mean exerting influence over others. It's just giving them a simple nudge, okay? And they will use their imagination, you know, and boost that idea that you have implanted in their minds. As an example, let's say that a country has been through a great long war, and the war is finally over after a long time, okay? Now let's say that accidentally, or as part of an experiment, you just happen to start the war alarms again, okay? Now, people being still under the influences of war and all the shock and awe and panic, okay, the moment they hear those alarms, they will lose themselves almost instantly, okay? They will already invent different scenarios in their minds, okay? They will already invent different possibilities. The enemies are already there, okay? But they're only there in their minds. They're not in reality, okay? You just turned on something, and that turns them on into using their imagination, because imagination is a fact of the mind. The mind can only create. It cannot stop. That is why many people still keep moaning, because they think that meditation is shutting down your mind. No, 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 no. No. It doesn't work like that. Your mind only gets shut down when you perish. Okay, that's the only moment when you shut down your mind. Meditation actually means becoming one with your thoughts and just letting them go. There is something called karmic moments with regards to the mind, and these karmic moments are, well, how to call them? There are some moments when the mind will be a bit more full with certain thoughts, and you just have to let them away. Okay? The most important thing about your thoughts is that you are not your thoughts. Most of them don't even belong to you, and based on what kind of thoughts and how what things actually repeat in your mind, well, those should be some things to keep an eye for, because most likely there are some entities that, want to trick you. Now, what does evil actually mean? Well, evil actually means living life in reverse. And what actually means to live in reverse? Well, you get live, which is L-I-V-E, and, well, guess what? You get E-V-I-L if you put it in reverse. Okay? So evil doesn't necessarily mean, evil does not mean being bad, okay? Evil means being turned against something. And in our case, you can agree that society turns us against literally everything. No one teaches you how to use your emotions, so you'll usually blame yourself for everything just because other people, who in turn haven't been taught that, well, they do it, and as a child you will see your parents as gods. You see them doing this, so guess what? The child usually ends up as a better version of their parents. So you will become a better bitch, whiner, moaner, a person usually like that. We all have such periods in life, and then, well, we kind of tend to transcend. No one teaches you how to train your mind, so therefore you will be distracted by literally everything. And school actually has a big role in this, and also parents have a big role back, because let's not forget that parasites control literally everything. Okay, school is kind of their playground, because through school, well, they terraform happy children and creative children into drones that, well, they don't have much passion for life, and they hate themselves because, well, how else can you actually easily conquer an entity without making them hate themselves? You need a breach in order to start manipulating a person. And then as you lower their vibration and their self-love, the point is you will just have them indulge in different things. And you can see why we are called, my generation and the younger ones are called the fucked up generations. Drugs, cigarettes, we are more emotional, we need more empathy and love, but no one is there to actually give it. And again, we are gonna be the first generations to learn what it is like with these. However, the end of these matrices, of these parasitic grids, okay, that take into account the idea of enslaving people, it's, well, unfortunately kind of the end for them. Okay, so now evil actually means living against yourself, and evil is kind of a synonym of cancer, because cancer is a term not necessarily physiological but also spiritual and any other term. Cancer is actually when a bit of you turns against you. Basically, when you have a raffle against yourself, that is a form of cancer. And yes, do it enough and, well, you might actually reach a physical level when it starts manifesting physically. Now, don't be afraid necessarily about cancer, because our body can beat even a few hundred or probably a few thousand such, cancerous preformations each and every day, because there will always be things like that. We are bombarded by radiation, and there are all sorts of negativity within us, and this negativity is also drawn from others through our empathy. And, well, we're not taught to give it up, so it will, sediment in our own bodies. Now, the point is with evil is, are people necessarily evil? Well, it depends on what people would understand through this word. Okay, many people understand evil as bad. Okay, and we have created this huge illusionary phenomenon of good and bad, okay, evil and shining lights, the idea of God that is all welcoming. And why in the end do we have to actually fear him? Because how in earth do you actually end up fearing a so-called god of love? It's like, okay, that's definitely sounds stupid. And also it's a man. And secondarily, I mean, I don't have anything against any of the genders, okay, but you know when you create something, okay, and you say that that something has created us as humans in its image, it's like, dude, what the fuck, are you kind of retarded? Like, how can you actually believe in something like that? I mean, that's the embodiment of narcissism in a way. And I'm not blaming or demonizing Christianity. I mean, I accept each and everyone's faith, but it's kind of the time people start opening up and seeing that, hey, you know what? It's like, you're actually, what if you are actually feeding such parasites? Because let's be honest, you're believing in a deity that is a man. I mean, why would they actually be a man? Okay, like you say, they are the embodiment of everything and every possible power. So why would they actually have a human form? They have created the whole life in this planet, and why don't they look like a deer? Okay, why don't they have animal forms, like for example the fauns in the Celtic uh, belief system? Okay, uh, or I don't know, why do they actually have to be a human and a man? I mean, in my case, if I were to make a religion, I would actually have a man and a woman in a way, because not necessarily because of marriage, which is bondage, but more so because there's masculine and feminine energy. But come again, the awareness of people back then wasn't that great. So when you invent or when you create a religion, you have to make it in such a way so that illiterate people can actually understand, which kind of starts as the premises of manipulation. Because in the end, why would I actually worship, which means giving all my power to a certain entity which I believe in, which also means accepting something without a necessary need for belief, for a proof? It's like, that sounds very twisted, okay? Like, hopefully it's not just me, but and more so than that, you know it's like, why were we actually created in their image? And it's like, dudes, we have created an entity, and that entity has created us in our image, so basically we are worshipping ourselves. It's like, okay, someone called a psychiatry. It's like, okay, because this actually, this, if this still doesn't sound narcissistic, okay, and all these constipational theories wanting to make man and woman like one and the same so that they can be easily controlled, is like, there has to be only one. And isn't one a number of narcissism, perfection, and something like that? Because if there is only one human, well, this kind of sounds more like Horatio from the endless space. I mean, he just cloned himself until he created a whole race out of him, and then guess what, everyone is actually bowing to him, but it's just a race of himself, okay? And he himself is the god that created an entire race in his image. I mean, that doesn't sound like the embodiment of narcissism, okay? And well, to move on, the idea of evil is that yes, in a way we can attribute it to being a bit negative, okay? Because basically evil is kind of turning against something, okay? When you manipulate someone, you are turning against that person, or at least you're making them turn against themselves. Now each and every gesture has their own karma, but come again, the point is, evil is also something that we all are, more or less. And to give you a little example, basically everything that you think of creates a thought form, okay? If you want to read more, you can read about tulpas, which are highly advanced thought forms that people can create and use for, let's say, even telekinesis. Now, I'm not gonna dive into that for now. So the point is, you turn people against themselves because in the end you're gonna be just like a predator preying on anything that is weaker. We humans kind of do it. It's like people kill animals because they cannot, necessarily shoot back. Okay, but one on one we don't stand much of a chance anyways. But it is just something that we do for feeding our demons. Because a quote of mine, well, came to my mind as people have demons to feed. Okay, well, let's call them parasites. Okay, and those entities need a lot of pain. Now, when you kill an animal, they will go through a lot of pain, but also, even after their consciousness leaves, the pain that the body feels it's not ended yet, because all those cells are gonna die. The putrefaction is also kind of a different pain. So there is all sorts of extra pains that will be created, and then that meat will be processed, and what you're gonna eat through that meat is basically the pain of that animal. Okay, it's like when you eat animal meat, it's like making a cemetery out of dead animals. Okay, and also let's not forget that hormones are very stable structures that cannot be desensitized by our organism, and well, by no other organism as well. Okay, and well, the question would be, how come predators don't feel fear? If they kill herbivores, right, they feel a lot of fear, and those hormones are gonna get into the predators' bodies. Well, they were also made for this. Okay, they were made to also cleanse this. And let's not forget that predators live in nature. They are always in contact with the soil. Okay, they have their legs, their paws on the soil, and the soil will always emanate a lot of negative ions, which are good again against cancer, and they equal the negativity in the body. Okay, they balance it, because cancer is supported by positive ions, and that is why rooting, for example, or earthing, putting your feet bare on soil, that is why it is a very powerful thing to do from time to time, especially on grass, and especially if you also hug trees. That is why you also have this practice being called as shameful, because what parasite would actually want you to do that? Because you're gonna get more positive, so you're gonna become less, you're gonna become less and less, compatible with them. So it means more work for them to terraform you. So they have to do extra work, and let's not forget they don't have the ability to regenerate their energy, and they will have to call to the humans around you, probably parents, loved ones, relatives, to piss you off from time to time to keep you at a lower vibration. They will mock you, they will laugh at you, they will trample you, they will do that what it takes so that you are, kept back in line. Now, the idea of evil is, as I said, everything you create will also have an impact on literally anything. And, well, again, the idea of the pendulum effect also kicks in. Now, I'm not going to extend this video too more, and let's actually finish with a simple point. Whatever you create will, impact others and will impact you as well. And what you put out towards the universe will also come back at you sooner or later, or in one way or another. Okay? Now, especially if you use visualizing and when you use emotions, okay, you amplify that feeling, that aspect a lot, like literally a lot. And now the big question comes that I've actually used to shut the mouths of a few people. The point is, do you worry about people? Because you see, what happens when you worry about people? Well, when you worry about people, shortly said, it's, well, you imagine that they will go through different unfortunate events, and you also put a lot of negative emotions into that, right? And worrying is also a powerful attractor. And thinking a bit what I said 1 minute ago about, putting emotions and imagery together, it's like when you worry about other people, it's like you're begging the universe for those elements that you're thinking of about them, the possible ways they could die, they could lose their job, they could whatever bad could happen to them. It's like you're actually begging the universe for those things to happen. Okay? And more so than that, you're not even grateful that those things don't even happen to those poor people that you're worrying about. And guess what? If you come and think, people who are more and more aware of things around, they usually and naturally no longer worry that much. Okay? Advanced people, enlightened people, you'll never see them worry about humanity's fate and whether the cunt virus will actually kill us all or not. Okay? Most likely they're sufficiently connected to the universe to know what happens, or even if everyone would die because of a cunt virus, well, why would actually anyone care? After all, they're in here for their enlightenment and their own spiritual path. Okay? So the simple point is, do you worry about people? Because, well, if you do, you're kind of an evil person. Okay? Don't judge yourself too much on this. Hopefully this will sink in and hopefully you understand my point. Until next time, do love yourselves more, do become a lot more introspective. Ferenc Board signing out.